So firstly, hi everyone and welcome to our first Tuesday training for 2022. We're kicking off with the Motorola MXP600 radio. And as you'd be aware, this is a Tetra subscriber released last year. And presenting today, we've got Stuart Heath from Motorola Solutions. Stuart, hello again and welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you.
The floor is yours. Let's get Tetrified.
Right, let's crack into it. No, thanks very much, Jason. Thanks for the introduction. So just welcome everyone, and just to introduce myself a little bit. So my name's Stuart Heath, as Jason says, from Motorola, based out of Melbourne, so down in sunny Melbourne today. Today I'm predominantly going to talk around the new portable subscriber, the MXP600, that Motorola's recently come out with. I'll cover a little bit about some of the other product portfolio that goes along with this particular subscriber, but the MXP itself has been out now probably since the middle of last year. It was first introduced into Europe. It's a product born from Europe for public safety, although we were very lucky in regards to the development of the subscriber, where it was brought over to Australia prior to the pandemic. It was brought over to Australia and tested and demoed with a lot of our mining customers. So we got quite a lot of Australian feedback, which we don't always get with these type of products, but we did get a lot of Australian mining type feedback and industry feedback that went into the design of this particular product, which did actually change some of the original concepts. So it was good to see that was taken into account. All right, I'll just crack through and hopefully everyone can see my slides and my internet will hold up and everything won't drop out. So the complete portfolio from a subscriber perspective, Motorola does supply infrastructure, but also supplies a wealth of portable subscribers and mobile subscribers. This is the range that is current within Australia, effectively Oceania. So we have a tiered structure of portable subscribers from the MTP3000 series with various features and functionality through to the 6000 series, which potentially will be discontinued quite soon and replaced with the subscriber we're talking about today, which is the MXP600. And then at the far right of the range of the portable subscribers, we have our intrinsically safe, exceptionally well regarded, intrinsically safe portable subscribers available here in both the 400 megahertz range and the 800 megahertz range. Just the elephant in the room, there's two grayed out boxes within here. These are actually very, very small devices that were introduced probably about 4 or 5 years ago into the Motorola portfolio. Never came into Australia, so they are available in some of the frequency bands in Asia, but never actually fitted into the frequency range for Australia, so we never really introduced those over here. From a mobile perspective, we have our standard range of mobiles, which we call the MTMs, Motorola Tetra mobiles, range from an entry tier, the 5200, all the way through to the 5500, which is a multi-head, multi-brick type device. That's relatively the same device all the way through, same form factor, DIN mounting, but it just, as we go through the tiers of the mobiles, we get higher power, high PAs, and as I say, when we start to get up to the 5500 series, we're able to have multiple heads. So we could have an ambulance, a train, whatever it's going to be, with a single brick in the middle, and then an Ethernet connected head at each end, for example. So that's the sort of typical subscriber, portable and mobile portfolio. But today, more importantly, we're going to be talking about the new MXP600. So you may have seen some of this. You may have seen some collateral on the internet. You may have been lucky enough to get to a show, at least virtually, and seen the introduction of this particular product. I've got a couple here on my desk that I've been playing around with for quite a while now. But the MXP600, it's effectively been designed to solve everyday challenges that people face in the field. It's we've really gone back to basics from a subscriber perspective. So you really will see with how the form factor of the particular device how the user interface has changed significantly from some of our previous subscriber models. Foremost, it's a mission-critical Tetra subscriber, so public safety within Europe. We're starting to see these used through NATO, Ministry of Defence, those sort of things as well. They're very small and light, which is nice to see, although the buttons themselves on them are still the standard sort of size, so you still get to them with gloved hands and those sort of things. So let's have a little bit of a look of the subscriber itself. Some of the key features that we see here. So it is a new hardware all the way up. So the nice part about that is it is now Bluetooth 5.0 capable. So that's a big step forward for us, which adds a lot of lower power Bluetooth capability to battery life. It offers us an incredible amount of higher level security capability. The screen itself, 2.4-inch color display, large display, non-reflective glass, able to use in the Australian environment, those sort of things. Multiple microphones, and this is something that I'll talk about in a little while, but something we haven't had in the Tetra product range for ever, to be perfectly fair. With this particular device, we're actually using up to 3 microphones that is picking up your voice. So it's got a microphone on the front, you'll see one on the top. There is actually a 4th microphone just for private calling, but for general group calling, there's a microphone on the top, there's a microphone on the back, and it will also use the speaker as a microphone if it needs to. So if there's a high wind noise environment, it will actually potentially use elements of the speaker as a microphone to enhance your transmission, your audio quality that's being sent out. Beamforming, so it will only send your voice and won't send a lot of that background noise. So airports, a jet going past, those sort of things, very, very good, same as in mining. Some of the other things that we've got on the particular device itself, we're keeping everything relatively the same. The side connector is a little bit smaller for previous accessories, but the bottom connector for battery charging, so if you've got multi-unit chargers, single unit chargers, in-car kits, those sort of things, most of those will work. Your programming cables, everything like that will still work on this particular device. And then we come to the internals, where we talk a little bit about the improved RF sensitivity. And again, I'll talk about that in a little bit. It is a class 3 Tetra subscriber, which basically means it will go up to about 2.8 watts transmission. But then on the receiver side, there's a lot of enhancements around the actual receive sensitivity over some of our competitors and over some of our previous products at the same time. The rear of the device, and none of this is really sort of putting into perspective the physical size of it, but the rear of the device, as I say, it has the rear microphone. So when I'm talking to the front, the rear microphone is actually cancelling out a lot of that background noise. It's got a changeable battery, so there's a battery latch. You can take the battery cover off, swap the batteries over. Batteries will last for a long time. It does have near-field connectivity, so you are able now just to tap it to a smartphone or a Bluetooth device or whatever it's going to be for instant pairing of that particular device. But then again, all the buttons, as I say, so the PTT, some of the functionality buttons, the orange button on the top of the radio for emergency, they're all a prominent size. They're all similar size to what we've been used to. They're all in the same ergonomic location. So just follow the antenna down. You're always going to find the emergency button. And this particular radio is a single knob control knob effectively, which will do your channel change. You can push it down for functionality at the same sort of time. And then with all our new subscribers going forward, we've now got this coverage indicator on the top. So you're able to see when the radio is just down on your hip, you're able to look down and just see whether you're in coverage or if you're out of coverage and you need to go to DMO or whatever it's going to be at the same sort of time. All right, so the device itself is within the Australian frequency band of 403 to 470. I say 403 to 470, it will cover that whole band, and it is configurable to do the 9.5 megahertz split from transmit to receive in the lower end of those bands. So some of our rail networks are now rolling out Tetra using the lower 403 frequency band. The typical frequency band in Australia for Tetra is 450 to 470 with a 10 megahertz split between transmit and receive. That's relatively conventional. The radio itself will fit nicely into that band, along with all the characteristics and all the performance. So it's a class 3 capable radio, so providing a greater range than our typical sort of class 4 1 watt type radios. The radio itself has a dynamic sensitivity around about a minus 107 dB dynamic sensitivity. That's a guaranteed figure. You will get an improvement on that, but from a marketing perspective, that's a guaranteed figure of around about minus 107, which is about a 4 dB improvement on other typical manufacturers, other Motorola equipment. And 4 dB on a receive sensitivity. So you've got a class 3 transmission of 2.8 watts. You've got a dynamic sensitivity of about minus 107. That 4 dB will give you about 30% greater range just from that RF characteristic. So you will be able to go that much further. The class 3 transmission comes in very handy with direct mode access. So if you do need to go into direct mode, if you're out of range of your infrastructure, your base stations, you're in a tunnel, whatever it's going to be, the 2.8 watts and the 4 dB increased sensitivity will increase your range significantly in that sort of environment. So it's good to see some of the improvements within the RF side of it. And every time we release a new subscriber, we seem to get better and better RF sensitivity. It's just the way of the world, really. It's just getting very, very good. All right, so talk a little bit about the noise and the audio quality of the particular device. It's a very loud speaker for a very small device. It's around about 2 watts loudspeaker. There are some other clever tricks that they've been able to do with this though, at the same sort of time. So although it's a 2 watt loudspeaker, which is, I think that's about 3 or 4 times louder than a typical smartphone, when you're on speaker mode on a typical smartphone, it will go up to, it's been tested to represent around about 102, got to pronounce this right, FON, F-O-N, 102 FON, which is a perceived audio level, but it basically shows that this particular device compared to a smartphone type device, and that's the sort of size we're comparing against, will be 3 to 4 times louder at that particular point. And all these are sort of measured around about 30 centimeters away from the body, away from the ear, at the same sort of point. So that's typically, there's a lot more that's gone into the audio quality. The speaker itself is built well within the actual device, protected from the iron dust environments as well. And as you'll see there on the slide, the private calling microphone. So when you use a Tetra device as a full duplex telephony type device, be it for a telephone call or be it for a private call, the microphone at the bottom, it will be your active microphone. That'll be the only active microphone you have for a private call. It doesn't need any others because you're holding it right up to your mouth. And then the speaker audio will be coming from the top, and it will be much more muted for a typical telephone type call environment. Some of the smarts that go into the radio itself, beamforming is definitely something that's now been introduced. Now the fact that we've got additional microphones, you may have seen this with some of the other Motorola products, not necessarily the DMR products, the Moto Turbo products, but the Astro P25 subscribers. If you've seen those in the mining space, they will also have a microphone on the back. So when you are talking, if there is heavy machinery in the background, a heavy noise source, the active noise cancellation will take that noise away and will just concentrate the voice and the audio from the front of the microphone. If you're selling to customers, if you're showing it to customers, it's worth demonstrating. Comparing it against another manufacturer's radio, an older style Motorola radio, whatever it's going to be, it works exceptionally well in being able to do that. And it doesn't matter where that noise source is, the beamforming will change parameters based on the increased audio volume at what particular location is on the far side of the device that you're using. It doesn't help so much for trying to receive audio, so the speaker volume, those sort of things. If you've got a jet going past, and I've actually tested this, if you've got a jet taxiing past you, you're able to speak and they are able to hear you as normal with that engine noise going through. You can't hear the communication coming back. You're going to have to wear a headset or something like that because it's just too noisy. But for a public safety, for a mining, aviation, rail industry, exceptionally good way of doing it. One of the other clever parts that's been added to the subscriber now, as I say, is the adaptive wind noise mitigation. So I've never seen this before. This was the first radio that we've actually introduced it into, where we're actually using the loudspeaker on the front of the radio as a third microphone. You wouldn't use it for voice calling or those sort of things. The fidelity of it wouldn't be exceptionally good. But for cancelling out wind noise and changing the dynamics of the beamforming and the profiling, this is something that it's exceptionally good at. So a lot of the time we're in those sort of noisy type environments, got a lot of wind noise coming through. The radio device can actually decide what percentage of each one of the microphones it needs to use to get the best audio quality through at the same sort of time. Again, I can talk about this till the cows come home, but at the end of the day, demonstrate this, try this, you'll actually see a huge improvement all the way through from the intrinsically safe subscribers, which was our last generation of subscribers, the 6000 series and the 3000 series. The 600, the MXP600, being tested in the mining industry, and it's just crystal clear. It's very, very, very exceptionally good. All right, one of the other features that we've introduced and enhanced within this particular device is howling suppression. It's something we don't think about too much, but if you've ever used Tetra radios, you have a lot of the time you're in a control room, so you'll be coming from outside. That's normally sort of the typical scenario. You're at a refinery, you've got your subscriber radio on your hip with an RSM. You come inside to the control room. Everyone else has portables all on their desk, mobiles, whatever it's going to be. You come into the control room, one person keys up, and all the radios just howl. And it's the most annoying thing, but it's a typical scenario for an LMR two-way radio type solution. You've got people standing next to each other. You've got public safety officers standing next to each other. You're going into a quiet control room. You get this howling. So we've now introduced howling suppression. Howling suppression will cancel a lot of that noise, pretty much all of it, to be perfectly fair, from what I've seen. So when radios are in close proximity, they will work together to actually cancel that howling noise out, which is a great feature. And if you've ever experienced it, everyone basically has to turn their volume down so one person can speak. We've gone away from that, so that's a very new introduction into this particular device. So talk a little bit about location. So again, some of the new features of the particular radio. This device, as you'll see, supports up to as common, I'll say, excuse me, as common, it will support up to 4 satellite locationing systems. I have to say it like that. Not GPS. GPS is the American standard, but it will also support Galileo, which is the European standard. It will support China's Beidou. I'm sure I pronounced that wrong. It'll support Russia's GLONASS, and then the standard US GPS solution at the same sort of time. The one nice thing about this is the locationing accuracy. We are now down to 1.2 meters. So I always, whenever I'm talking to customers, I'm always talking about, oh yeah, 5 meters accuracy for GPS and those sort of things. It's changed. It's now down to 1.2. If it can see 2 constellations, so GPS, Galileo, Beidou, GLONASS, whatever, if it can see 2 constellations, we can get the accuracy down to around about 1.2 meters, which is very, very close. We're now at the point where we know which side of the road the vehicle is on. We know which side of the road the person is on, if they're on one side of the path or the other side of the path. So things have changed significantly from that point of view. So that's good. There is a 5th satellite constellation from Japan that I don't even know if it's a word. It's a QZSS from memory. It's a regional satellite constellation that Japan uses. It will support that as well. Although that's not a common protocol that we actually add to the radio. There's not that much requirement, especially in Australia. The main four seem to cover us quite well, especially with the Beidou, the Chinese version. So the battery life of the radio, well, the standard battery will support up to 18 hours of typical usage. Don't quote me on this. Typical usage, I think, is 95.5, 90% doing nothing, 5% transmitting, 5% receiving, audio coming through on the speaker. So that's around, so the 1900 milliamp hour battery that comes as standard will give you 18 hours for that. There's a much larger battery, which is the 3400 milliamp hour, which will give you 30 hours, which is unheard of. I mean, it's the radio, the device itself is pretty much the same sort of size as a smartphone. It will give you 30 hours of battery life at the same sort of time, which is great. You can actually see in the picture there's a slightly larger cover on the back to give you that size. And then not so applicable for the Australian market, but the 2900 milliamp hour battery will work down to -30. So if we ever do find, maybe in Melbourne, if we ever do find an environment that goes to extreme temperatures, extreme minus temperatures, then the 2900 milliamp hour battery is the one for that. The radios themselves, as I say, they are interchangeable. You can just swap the batteries out into a new one at the same sort of time. And I'll talk about and show you some of the accessories that go with this in a second. Okay. So from a reliability perspective, IP ratings, it's all your standard. It is IP rated up to 68, so 2 meters for 2 hours. If you do drop it into a puddle and forget about it, or drop it in a puddle and drive over it and can't find it, you've got 2 hours to get it back out again. Standard sort of Motorola military testing, military standard testing, dropping ball bearings onto the screen from a great height, dropping it onto the floor from 1.2 meters, those sort of things, repeatedly, and that sort of stuff. Definitely tested for the Australian environment, around mining, dusty environments, those sort of things, as we're all used to. Yes, it was actually tested within some BHP type mining installations, so dust doesn't collect onto a magnetic speaker and all those sort of things that have been spoken about before, and then all your typical sort of squirting jets of water in. But being IP68 with the right accessories makes it a very, very reliable device. So talking a little bit about some of the other features that come with the radio or are available to be added into the radio. Security is a very, very big one, again, from public safety. We don't see too much security here in Australia. We're starting to get customers to asking around security. So if they are, this particular device will meet all the security standards. It is utilized, as I mentioned, within NATO. It will support all the TIA standards within Tetra, but they're the ETSI standards for over-the-air, end-to-end encryption, those sort of things. What it will also do is it will meet the government safety standards for Bluetooth connectivity. Quite a big one, this, and we've had some instances reported from customers where a Bluetooth enabled Tetra device, other people were able to pair to it relatively easy. So you can imagine that a police officer who's got a Bluetooth headset or whatever it's going to be, someone else comes along and they actually pair a receiving device to it, they can actually hear what's going on. So they bypass all that encryption and everything else at a very, very easy level. Now putting in Bluetooth version 5, this gives us what we call security mode 4, level 4, which is a recommendation by, it's one of the highest security classifications for our Bluetooth connectivity and secure connectivity. At the same sort of time, the device will support 128-bit AES encryption. for the accessory devices. All right, so talking a little bit about the infrastructure. As I say, we don't, the radios are capable. It's an option to add into the radio. If you start talking about encryption, customers generally have a specific requirement for it. We have had some rail customers talk to us about encrypting devices. We've had some refinery customers who are working quite in close proximity to other refinery operations, and they've asked for encryption on their radio devices. Encryption comes in two phases, what we call end-to-end encryption or air interface encryption. End-to-end is utilizing both Motorola subscribers and Motorola infrastructure at a high level. So we're encrypting from the audio that comes into the radio. It's digitized, and at that point it's encrypted through the base station, through the infrastructure, through the consoles, voice recording, whatever it's going to be. It's an encrypted message all the way through on all the linking, on all the routing, on all the backhaul. Air interface is probably more appropriate to Australia, where we encrypt over the air. So as long as you've got a secure infrastructure and you don't believe that your infrastructure can be penetrated or attacked in any way, then end-to-end encryption is just basically the radio device will have an encryption, be it a 128, 256, TEA, whatever it's going to be for a Tetra device. And it's encrypted all the way up to the base station. Out of the base station, it's still ones and zeros, but it's not encrypted at that point. There are other ways of doing that, but through the infrastructure, it's clear. Once it gets back to the next base station and out over the air, again, the encryption comes into place and it's very, very secure. So two different versions. As I say, I don't think for Tetra, I don't think I've ever seen air interface encryption or end-to-end encryption, sorry. In Australia, I have seen a couple of times requirements for air interface, so it's just something to bear in mind. All right, so although it's difficult to show without a video, the particular device itself, this gives a good indication of a typical size and weight of what the device is. If you can imagine this, how can I put this into perspective? From a DMR perspective, it's probably about a third of the size of a typical DP 4000 series or something like that. It's probably a little bit smaller than a typical Motorola MTP 3000 or 6000 series subscriber, and probably about half the size of one of the intrinsically safe ones. So as I say, it's a full keypad. It's an intelligent keypad. So if you're not using particular buttons, it would turn the display or the light on the particular button off. So for example, if I go into the menu and I'm searching through the menu and the menu doesn't require the left or right keys, for example, it will turn the lights off on the left and right keys, those sort of things, just to simplify it for the user, just to try and make it that a little bit easier. The physical weight of the device is around about 200 grams, so very, very light with the standard battery and the standard antenna. So yes, a very, very light device. What we are seeing now, we had a requirement in Australia and we are seeing in Europe also, is customers and end users are actually wearing the subscriber terminal on their vest. So in public safety, they're clipping it to their vest, not wearing it on their belt anymore. So it's actually going onto their epaulets, onto the top of their shoulders. So weight is very, 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 very critical. And that helps a lot with the, that's how they're sort of typically using it, just leaning over and they're listening to the audio or they're PTTing at the same sort of time. So size and weight for a Tetra subscriber is very, very important nowadays. And this is how we're meeting it, even with the rough terrain capabilities. So talking a little bit about some of the options that go with the device itself. Every device comes with a belt clip. They do support what we call the Peter Jones click fast capability. So the Peter Jones is a third-party company, but relatively standard quick connect. So you're able to basically twist on, twist off. You may have seen some of the Motorola body-worn cameras, for example. Same sort of configuration. If you're wearing one of these public safety vests, I've seen in the mining industry, I've seen people have these sewn on. It's just basically a clip, and you can drop the radio straight into it, click it on, and it's very, very secure. It is not going to come off. But to remove it, it's a relatively quick twist and then take off at the same sort of time. There is a lanyard strap. I've never really seen anyone use this, but there is a lanyard strap and multiple cases, leather cases, those sort of things. So if you do want to put it on a lanyard, you want to tie it around your wrists, those things at the same sort of time, potentially. Now I'm getting beeping noises. Oh, that's fine. There we go. Okey-dokey. All right, so just talking a little bit about the ease of use of the particular device. It's important to note that it's a very intuitive display. We're using the same software, so the menu structure will be very common to typical users. They would have, if they've used a Motorola radio before, they will be very easy to see the type of display that we have. It is tactile friendly, so we can be using gloves and those sort of things. It's a smaller connector on the side for the accessories, but that's pretty much, as I say, about the only change. And we've left all the features and functionality, so the same sort of function buttons. As I say, it's the same programming software that you would have seen before at the same sort of time, and the screen display itself is much, much larger and much, much brighter than what we've previously had and seen. All right, so that's a little bit about the radio. Spoke quite a bit about the radio there. Just want to talk about some of the new things that are coming out in conjunction with the radio. So what we are seeing, I could probably talk about it a bit. Let me just jump. Get rid of that sort. What we are seeing in the industry is a convergence of devices. So we're seeing the Moto Turbo evolve. It's a device that will do DMR technology. It's a device that will do LTE at the same sort of time. For Motorola, we're seeing the APX Next within the P25 Astro product portfolio. It's a Astro P25 radio with LTE built in at the same sort of time. In Tetra, we've gone a little bit of a different direction in doing that. We haven't made a converged device. We haven't added LTE into the subscriber. That's not on the roadmap at the moment. Because as I say, the device itself is relatively small, sticking onto your lapel or whatever it's going to be. So it's fit for purpose for what it actually is. What we've done is we've actually come out with an application that you run on your smart device. So talking to a lot of public safety users in Europe, they will carry both. There's a lot of applications nowadays that a public safety officer, same in mining, I suppose, will need. There'll be a number of applications on a smart device that they will need. So they're going to have to carry both at the same sort of time. So why not put an app? And we have this called M Radio. Just got to double check that. I think it's called M Radio is the application that you can go on to the Android store, download it. Yeah, this is called M Radio. Go onto the application store, download it for free if you've got the subscriber, and then it will Bluetooth pair with your smartphone, and it gives you the full screen capability of that particular device. So what we're really seeing in that environment is sometimes some customers are just putting the radio into a enclosed leather case, putting that onto their hip, and they're just using their smart device, which gives them all that intuitive being able to text message very, very easily because they're used to that. They can search through talk groups very, very easy at the same sort of time. They can effectively control the whole radio. So they're seeing everything from that one smart device. I like that. I think from a user perspective, I think that's a good way of doing it. You're always going to have this, you're always going to have a smart device. So at the same time, just leave the radio to be a radio with its high grade RF performance, and then you can control it from an application at the same sort of time. So a good way of doing it, and that's what's been introduced, and I've used that quite a number of times. All right, one of the other new features that's been added to this particular device is, as I mentioned, the near field capability. So when we start talking about smart devices, pairing to a smart device, it's very easy with the near field. So you just grab, if you're not individual assignment of a particular subscriber, if it's just a per user or per day assignment to the subscriber, you grab it out of the charger, you pair it with your smart device using the NFC capability, and then you're ready to go effectively, and out you go at the same sort of time. So very quick, easy way of managing pooled devices. I covered a little bit about the M radio control application. This is a better picture of what it looks like. As I say, you can download this. Yeah, it's just a great little app that you can download onto your app, onto your smartphone, the same sort of thing, and just control that particular device. So you can use your smartphone for push to talk, changing channels, texting, whatever it's going to be. If it's a data transmission over the Tetra network, you can use this. So if you're out of range of LTE, your smart device is out of range of LTE, you're still able to use data connectivity depending on how your network is actually set up at the same sort of time. So definitely a good way of going. Here's a better example within this slide of the different fields, the different folders within that radio app, from where you're able to be. So it's just easy to scroll through at the same sort of time. All right, so talk a little bit about some of the accessories that are available with a particular device. The chargers are relatively the same. The chargers are the same. It's the same connector on the bottom of the radio itself. It's a good connector. It's basically self-aligning pins. You whack it into your charger, because let's face it, that's what we all do. It's very tactile. Be it a single unit charger, dual unit charger, or a multi-way charger. Whack the device in, you've got the pins at the bottom, they self-align. Even if they're bent, they will actually straighten themselves, which is quite cool to see. Whack it in the charger and away you go. Car kits are still the same connectivity. The cradle itself for the car kit has changed slightly because of the form factor of the radio. All the other connectors are exactly the same, at the same sort of point. Audio accessories, RSMs, whatever they're going to be. A lot of those are similar. Some have changed due to the smaller connector on the side. Obviously, all the Bluetooth and those sort of things are still available and working going forward. And then the programming software, the programming cables, all exactly the same. We used to program off the side connector. We now program via USB off the port at the bottom is our connectivity. So the same with the battery chargers. Some of the battery chargers have network capability. So you can drop the radio into a battery charger and actually program it via the battery charger at the same sort of time. So that's cool. And then from a user perspective, as I say, the radio itself looks and feels from a menu very, very similar to what we're all used to. We're not in the business of changing the functionality. These are mission critical, business critical tools. And if you're used to one, you want to stay used to it all the way through. So we're not adding any surprises as we go forward. Okay, one other new feature which I haven't covered off here, which is Wi-Fi capability. It came in late in the game in the device itself. We were a little bit concerned it might not be introduced, but it came in. It's a welcome addition to the actual device. So a lot of customers are asking us, can I do over-the-air programming? Can I do Wi-Fi programming, those sort of things? Up until recently, it wasn't actually ratified within the ETSI standard. That's up until recently, a good 5-6 years ago, it came into the ETSI standard. It's not something that Motorola really introduced, over-the-air programming. We've always had over-the-air rekeying from a security perspective, but over-the-air reprogramming, I'll talk to that in a second, was never available. It is now. But Wi-Fi capability on both 2.4, 5 gigs now allows us to reflash, refirmware a radio. Well, that's brilliant. In the old days, it's always important to keep your radios up to date. Motorola will come out with new firmware, new features, new bug fixes, whatever it's going to be. A couple of ways of reflashing and refirmwaring a radio and reprogramming a radio. Connect it to your PC and you can update the firmware. Drop it into your battery charger. Have what we call an integrated terminal management solution sitting at the back of your battery chargers, and we can automatically update radios once they go into the battery charger. Now we can do it via Wi-Fi. Now we can do it so if you just bring your radio into a certain area within Wi-Fi, company Wi-Fi coverage, you can now be connected to the system, and we can update your firmware, update your programming, all at the same sort of time. Very good feature to be able to do. It's going to save a lot of hassle, and what it's going to mean is, one, I'm not going to get phone calls where customers have a subscriber that's got firmware that's 10 years out of date and isn't working. But now we're going to be able to keep our subscriber and our firmware up to date within the whole fleet at the same sort of time, and also from a programming perspective, very quick and easy to program. But to make it even easier to program, we've recently introduced over-the-air programming, OTAP. This is not just exclusive to this radio. It's actually flowed through to the rest of our product portfolio, where you're able to use over-the-air programming. It uses a short data router on your infrastructure. Not necessarily, it doesn't have to necessarily be Motorola infrastructure. It can be other manufacturers' infrastructure. If you have short data routers and you're able to send short data messages, effectively you will connect your customer programming software that's installed on your laptop. You'll connect your laptop to a radio, and as long as that radio is within infrastructure RF coverage of the system, you can then actually over the air and program radios at the same sort of time. So that's quite a good way of going. If you've got existing subscribers, as long as you bring them up to, I think it's release 19 onwards, which has been out for about 2 years now, you can over the air program, and the same with these particular radios. Even from the first release of software of these radios, you're able to do over the air programming, which is changing talk groups within the radio. It's changing contact lists, all those sort of things. There's a whole list I can provide you of what features and functionality can be updated incrementally within using over-the-air programming at the same sort of time. All right, so there are some new accessories. As I say, some of the older ones will work with particular radios, but there are some new accessories that have come out for the subscriber device itself. So corded surveillance earpieces, over-the-ear headsets, and then the new remote speaker microphone, the 780, which is incredibly ruggedized, designed for sort of the mining type harsh environments. It's got channel change functionality, PTT, emergency buttons, those sort of things, all built into it at the same time. And we also have a Bluetooth remote speaker microphone. I don't know, I think we may have had one for Tetra previously. I haven't used one, but I've tried this one, the 500, the WM500, and yeah, it's very, very good Bluetooth type connectivity, and just gives you that capability at the same sort of time for connecting in. The chargers, as I say, they're pretty much standard. We now use what we call Impress 2 technology. What we've got here is an example of a bank of chargers, which will do up to 24. This is a modular bank of 6. 6 units that have been mounted onto a wall, number of different combinations of chargers. So the radio itself will just charge via USB off a computer. The radio will charge off a plug pack, which plugs into the bottom of the device. So AC to DC plug back into the wall, plugs into the bottom of the device. There is a dual unit charger, which is actually one I prefer, which sits on the desk. The radio device sits at the front of it, and you can actually have a spare battery at the back of that particular charger itself, or for larger environments, the 24-way or 6-way, whichever configuration that you want for charging multiple batteries at multiple times. So all of those have been taken care of. A couple of the carry accessories, as I say, there are a number available. This is just an example of some of those. The belt clip, the Peter Jones, and then the soft leather case at the same sort of time. It's quite a nice leather case to go over the device. Gives us access to all the pins and ports at the same sort of time. All right, I'm just going to conclude. I think we've gone through about 45 minutes and gone through a lot of slides. So just as I say, it's a much smaller, much lighter device than we've seen before. It is future-proofed with regards to a lot of the new hardware, increased RF performance, Bluetooth 5.0 capability, extended battery life, near field connectivity, smartphone applications, Wi-Fi. Even as I say now, there's a lot of new features that have just been introduced into one particular device. And then, as I say, from a mining, commercial, Australian user case, the audio quality through the multiple microphones is just a game changer, an absolute game changer. So it's a huge and vast improvement. So the MXP600 will be the go-to subscriber for Australia going forward. There will still be a lower tier, but I really do see most customers, once they try this particular device, will be the unit that they'll be looking for most of their user cases going forward. Awesome.
So I think we'll wrap it up there, Stuart. Again, just want to say thanks so much for your time and energy in preparing and presenting this to us here at ACE and all of our partners. We really do appreciate it. And to all of our partners, we do appreciate your time and thanks for joining. We hope you've learned something. Remember that we are all here to support you and to help you work through these opportunities and ultimately to sell through these different technologies and solutions. So please, we know you're the feet on the street and you're customer facing. So hit us up as you need us, and we'll do whatever we can to support you. So we'll wrap it up there. And again, thank you very much, everybody, and we'll catch you on the next Tuesday training on the 22nd.
Awesome. Thanks very much. Thanks, ACE, for putting this on.
Cheers.
Thank
you. Bye.